Alright, time to talk about the classes of D&D. Let's get into it! Hey everyone, I'm your host Jason here with Porcupine Gamers, where we're hoping to bring everyone together with all things tabletop. What we're going to be talking about today is the classes for D&D. And last videos we talked about a few different things that we had for combat, for spell casting, and kind of what is D&D. So now that you know that, and if you haven't, go ahead and check out the video up above so you can catch up to where we're at. I'll wait. I'll pause here. Okay, you're caught up, you know what it is. You know what D&D is. You know about combat and spell casting. And now you want to become that powerful legend that praises will be sang about. So, first thing you're going to need is the player handbook. Bloop. Insert photo of player handbook here. Or you can just use, D&D Beyond, Fantasy Grounds. They have some stuff for free right now. So let's dive in. First thing I want to do for new players is kind of the stats and how they're going to work. So you have 6 stats in D&D, okay? You have 3 physical and 3 mental, okay? Strength is what you've got first, and people always use the tomato analogy, right? So strength is how hard you can throw the tomato. Dexterity is how well you can throw the tomato. Constitution is how well you can resist when you eat a bad tomato or a poisoned tomato. Intelligence is you knowing what a tomato is. And wisdom is understanding what you can use a tomato for. And charisma is selling that tomato to others. If that makes sense. I don't know. The tomato thing's kind of weird. But the basics is you've got these 6 stats that you can put stuff into. When you start with point buy, like I showed you in the previous video, as you buy up in value, the cost is going to go up. And I'm going to cover for these classes basically all the different things that are good stats to put into and what's not a good stat to put into. Now, D&D has a lot to pull from when it comes to the player handbook, but you can add even more if you get Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, Volo's Guide, Elemental Evil. There are a few other ones that you can pull from. During this video, I will show you the races that work well for classes. Some of them you won't be able to use, but I do include what book you could get if you do want to try them out. So, important thing to note, this is the disclaimer. D&D is about role-playing and having fun. Pick what you want. This guide is by no means the final word on any character or locking you into a creative box. It's merely a guide to help you start somewhere when trying a class. Alright, first up we've got the Barbarian. Let's see what he's good at. Tanking, melee combat, and shrugging off the killing blow. Now I've got put here all the stats you're going to want to work on. So these are the ones if we're doing point buy, which is what we're assuming, because if you roll, you get what you get. But these are the stats you're going to want to put into on your higher end, which is strength and constitution. Next up are your dump stats. Dump stats are the stats you don't really care about. For Barbarian, you guessed it, intelligence and charisma. Put here a list of what you might like and use that for if you want to play a Barbarian. These are all Barbarians in pop culture or in life. The Hulk, Conan, Drax. Basically Arnold in any of his movies. It's not a tumor. Alright, I just moved over, and as you see right here, we've got here an example of the stat points by. So, this is where I put my points if I was a Barbarian. That's before you put any of your modifiers for your races. But, just right there, stats, that's what I do for the Barbarian. Now, when it comes to the Barbarian, you may be wondering, what races are really going to be good for that? Well, we'll cover those. The first race you've got here, boom, the Mountain Dwarf. Oh, Bugbear, that's in Volo's Guide, and I put DM approval required. Any of the monsters that you can use normally from Volo's Guide generally require DM approval. Mostly you're not supposed to be able to play a monster. That's why I put that there. You've got the Earth Genesee. That's from the Player Companion for Elemental Evil. You're going to have Ye Old Gith Yankee. That is from Volo's Guide. Again, DM approval. You've got the Goliath. That's that big guy. You can see it. See. There you go. See over there in that picture there. Half Orc. Human. The Turtle. That one came in the Turtle package. Eberron is going to be its own world. It's kind of a steampunk genre within D&D. And the orcs there are a little different than the normal Fantasy Forgotten Realms orcs. So Eberron, all of these below, whenever it says Eberron, are going to be your races within Eberron. The book is Eberron the Last War. So Orc, Shifter, and Warforged, which are robots, cyborgs. So hopefully that helped you out for the Barbarian. If you like that, please stay tuned. We're going to do every different class and the breakdown for that. So please stay tuned. All right, so you've seen the Barbarian and you're like, all right, what else have you got? The Bard. The Bard is going to be the performer of the group. That means in more than one context. We'll get to that later. We can keep this PG. But the Bard often people use to smooth their way through problems. A little too much, I feel like, with the trope in D&D. But it is something they can do. So we'll get to that later, or never, hopefully. Basically, you love to solve problems diplomatically. And when it comes to fighting, you won't mind to do a little of this or a little of that. We're going to do in-depth videos breaking down like exactly how to build all these guys. But for broad stroke purposes, we're not going to get into that. But you can be a frontline bard. You can be the buff strumming the lute. Yeah, I know. Strumming the lute. Not like that. The bard literally can play an instrument of your choice and buff the party, from checks to combat. If you want a spellcaster that can buff, heal, utility, do damage, the bard's the choice for you. Bards are a charisma caster, meaning they buff their spell checks when they cast. Charisma is going to be the top pick, followed by dex, and then maybe con. Strength is your dump stat. Now, let's say you're wondering, all right, so what is a bard in other things? Oh, I've got Kubo. I've got the Goblin King. Remind me of the babe. What babe? The babe with the power. What power? Come on, guys. Come on. The Labyrinth. Watch it. David Bowie is the bad guy with these ridiculous pants. I'm not even going to get into that. Pause this video right now. Go watch The Labyrinth. Come back, and you'll get it. The Goblin King, Jareth was his name. Tenacious D. Chaucer from Knight's Tale. The guy that was the Trudger. All are examples of bards. Basically, they're charismatic, stylish fellows. Sometimes they don't even play the lute. Sometimes they tell stories. One of my favorite, I would consider bard characters, is the character from The Name of the Wind. And that is all I'm going to say about that. Read The Name of the Wind. Patrick Rothfuss? Anyway, he's a bard. Amazing. And then stats. Let's say, all right, how do I build a bard? There you are. You got them broken down right there. You've got the strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma broken down there for you. Now, basically, generally, you're always going to want charisma. Dex is good because it's AC. It's how well you avoid getting hit. And Constitution never needs Constitution. You're never going to need strength or wisdom. You're a bard. Okay, you're not going to be using these. You're going to be strumming ye old guitar. Now, what races are going to be good for the bard? Let's find out. Oh, bum, 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 bum. The Eladrin is in Mordekainen's Tome of Foes. It's basically a Fey elf from the wild. Half elf, human, the variant. There's two ways you can do the human build, so the variant build. Tabaxi, the cat guys. They're from Volo's Guide. They're not necessarily monsters, but still you might need DM approval. The Tiefling, and I put there the different things Tieflings can descend from, and they have different buffs. Dispater and Glacia are both good buffs. The Triton's really great. The UNT Pureblood, again, Vola's Guide, gets buffs to Charisma. Essentially, all of these you'll see are going to be Charisma buff or often Charisma and Dex buff. Eberron, Changeling, the Dragon Mark Elf with the Mark of the Shadow there. Dragon Mark Halfling, that's the Mark of Hospitality. And the Dragon Mark Human, the Mark of Passage. Get out of the way there. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. The Bard basically is going to be a support spellcaster, but you can build him a number of different ways. So that's the Bard and the Barbarian. Let's go on to the next guy. The Cleric. Oh, look, I revealed it already there. Shh. You're not supposed to see that yet. Alright, Cleric, what's he good at? Healing, support, utility. A Cleric can be built a number of different ways. You can be a combat Cleric, or you can be just a buff Healy Cleric. Stats that you're going to want to focus on for a Cleric. Obviously, Clerics are a caster, so you're going to focus on Wisdom. Con's a good secondary, because, Con's good for everyone. Basically, be a Cleric if you want to heal and protect the party. Again, you can build these guys a lot of ways, but broad strokes, best healer in the game, great support, utility, and divination. First things first, this greatly affects the role-playing. Clerics have to pick a god or goddess they serve. We're going to be doing a video next. I'll put it up there and it'll appear once I've done the video. Obviously, I'm trying to get a lot out right now. But pick a god or a goddess that works with your alignment. And that's going to be very important as a cleric. Because one of the things you can do is basically pray to your god or goddess and be like, hey, I need something. If they're evil or if they're neutral or if they're good will depend on how they answer your prayer. Alright. So you're now the servant of... Clerics are going to be wisdom casters. Okay, so that's the primary stat. Dex and Con are going to come secondary. And obviously your dump stat is going to be intelligence and whichever one you didn't take. That's going to be important because, like most martial classes, you can build yourself as a strength build or a dex build. So whichever you didn't take, depending on what armor you were wanting to buff, dump that one. Okay? Int is a dump stat. Unless you're a knowledge cleric, then you might need that for your knowledge checks, but otherwise, who cares? Now, let's see. Who would be a cleric if you liked clerics? Alright. Wasn't a whole lot of examples for holy fighters, but these guys I thought were pretty close for a cleric type. Any of the Knights Templar, Friar Tuck, Bones from Star Trek, not Bones from Bones. I'm a doctor, man, not an engineer. And Priest, that was his name, from Priest, which he was essentially a cool vampire hunter guy. Basically, you're generally a devout guy. Serve your god and goddess. You can be a missionary to them. That's one of the routes you can do. But you want to heal people. You want to help them out. Cleric's the way to go. Now, you already saw one of them, but there's the other one. So, you're going to have light armor and heavy armor. That's the way you build it for light, and that's the way you build it for heavy. 8 strength, 14 dex, 14 con. What is that? 8? 8 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 10 charisma. Now, if you look over there on the heavy side of things, it's going to be 14 strength and 8 dex. So they switched. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. The only reason I bumped charisma a little bit more there is because we didn't put as much elsewhere. The races. Woo! All right, I got a little comic there. That's from the weekly roll. I did a few different comics in there, but that's what I like there for the cleric. He says, "Surrender now, brigands. No one has to die here today." Cut to. Whoop, I got out of the way. Clearly things happened. And then he says, "Really wish you guys would have let me go first." We've all been there, right? Right? Passive members of the party. The murder hobos go off, and I mean, you can look. You can see there's an. I'm not used to this backwards. There's an orc there that's got someone's head, and it looks like he's wearing a badger skin warlock with smoking fingers. So remember that if you're the more passive one of the group. Sometimes you have to go first. Big shock. Asimir, you've got divine angel blood in you. And that's the protector Asimir, because there are other types. Hildorf, Furbolg. And you know I didn't put where Furbolg was from because I couldn't remember. But I'm going to say Volos. I'm pretty sure he's in Volos' guide. Human, lizard folk, half-orc. You're going to see a lot of these guys. They're not necessarily buffed for wisdom, but they are buffed for constitution, which is good. It's the cleric. You're going to get hit a lot. So you're gonna shrug it off. The turtle. I love the turtle. And for Eberron, we've got the Warforged, the robot, the Dragon Marked half elf, mark of detection, and that's it. The Druid. So the Druid. Here's what you want to know about the Druid. If you love nature more than people, you have more animal friends than human friends, you want to summon all the animal friends to your aid, or be an animal yourself, then Druid is the way to go. Honestly, Druids are incredibly versatile. You can build them a whole bunch of different ways. You can pretty much fill any role you want. They're good at versatile spellcasting. They're good at being a tank, a healer, a scout, and filling party gaps. I put that because basically, look at who else in the party is doing what role, and you can fill in the gaps of the Druid pretty easily. Druids are versatile. They pretty much fill any role. Druids are primarily a spellcaster, but depending on your circle you pick, you can do it all. Your main stat is going to be Wisdom, followed by Dex and Con, kind of. Dex, obviously AC, but also choosing where you are in initiative, and Constitution is how much hit points. The main thing, though, is Wisdom. That's your casting stat. Dex and Con are secondaries. For dump stats, I would probably dump Charisma and Strength. You're not going to use Strength because you should be wild-shaped, and if you're wild-shaped, you're not going to use your Strength. Int, you need... Int, I keep saying. Int is intelligence. For knowledge skills, if you don't need it, then just whoop, into the dumpster it goes. Dumpster shot. Boop. All right, I love the Druid. You can be the tank, you can be the fighter, you can be the caster, the healer, the utility, the scout. In a pinch, the healer. You got the old good berries. I'm going to do a vid entirely just on. Obviously, we're going to cover classes, but just on wild shapes. Because there are so many things that the Druid can turn into, and I'm going to do kind of a breakdown on that as well. Now, who should you be if you like Druids? Boom! I got Radagast, old Radagast from Lord of the Rings. Remember him? He had bird poop in his hair. Hagrid, he had all his little animal friends. Aquaman, you could literally be Aquaman as a Druid. Pocahontas, remember? She had all her animal friends. Go! Oh, there you go. And there's your stat breakdown. 8 strength, 14 dex, 14 con, 12 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 8 charisma. And that is the Druid. Now, what races work for a Druid? Let's find out. There's old Malfurion. I didn't know where that picture from. If I have any pictures up here, by the way, guys, that are yours, please let me know so I can give you credit. These are pulled off the Creative Commons site, which just means they're free use, but I'd love to give credit to whoever these pictures are from, so if I know, I'll try to give credit. The Aarakocra. Caw, caw. It's the bird guy, right? Elemental Evil. Really good one for a druid. Hildorf again. Wood Elf. The Water Genocide, again from Elemental Evil. A Furbolg. Vola's Guide. Half Elf. The Wood Elf variant on that one. The Ghostwise Halfling. The Human, the variant build. Lizard Folk. Vola's Guide. And Eberron, we've got the Warforged. And the Dragon Marked Elf, which is, get out of the way, the Mark of Detection. Hey everybody, I hope you liked the video, and there will be more coming up for the other class of D&D. I hope that helped you get over the fear of what to pick, and if you're going to make the right choice, or if you just don't care and you want to hop into a game. I've got the class, I got the race, and I got the stat breakdown for you, so you can just get right into it. We're going to be doing more videos coming up, so please check us out. And if you found value, like and subscribe. And comment in the section below and say, hey, I like this class, I don't like this class, etc., etc. We'd love to hear from you. If you found value, please share with your friends. We got other videos right here. And now for the takeouts. Hi everyone, I'm your host here at Tabletop Games, where I don't even know the name of my own company. I was already wearing tight pants. I just didn't activate them. Whoa! Moved over out of the way. As you can see, we've got here.